hopefully give you some things to think about. I'm going to focus on BYU Provo because that's what I know. But there is obviously BYU Idaho and BYU Hawaii, as well as LDS Business College, which is a 2-year school in Salt Lake, which is also a potentially good opportunity for students. So first off, for me, I mean, I am, if you know me, you know I'm like the biggest BYU advocate in the world. And that's because, number one, I think BYU, and I know this sounds cliche, but really from a spiritual standpoint, I don't think that you can find a greater experience anywhere else. Being from California, I had never heard the prophet speak, never heard an apostle speak, live, meaning, never in their kind of presence. And, BYU has weekly devotionals. They have the CES firesides are typically hosted on their campus, and you get the chance to just experience incredible spiritual things. Never prayed in a classroom before. And so these were all, to me, I thought, really, really cool experiences. Now, if you do end up going to a campus in Utah that isn't BYU, you still get very similar access to these type of things. The one difference probably is you can't pray in class because they're public versus private. But what?
Not my college. The U didn't do anything like that. No, nothing spiritual about it.
Well, but you got conference right there, and the CS firesides. I mean, you can drive. Yeah, and you get firesides from, like I know at Utah State, they get great speakers up there. I mean, just being in Utah in general, you get close proximity to some pretty awesome opportunities. The second thing is money. I mean, I know this sounds bad, but you can't beat the tuition anywhere in the country. It was $1,800 when I was there. I think I looked online. It's about $2,400 now for tuition per semester. But you consider what a UC or CSU even costs, and it's 90% of schools I don't think are going to be in that cost range that BYU is. I mean, I work in admissions, and I see private schools all day long that are $25,000, $30,000, $35,000 a semester, and no one has ever even heard of the school before. And you're like, what in the world, So for me, pound for pound, dollar for dollar, no greater education experience than BYU when it comes to cost. The third thing for me was student life. Again, this is coming from a California student's perspective. I went to a high school, I shared a little bit about that earlier. A lot of drugs, a lot of alcohol, a lot of other things. So to go to BYU was very refreshing to me. It was great to be in an environment where everyone believed in the same things, held the same standards that you did, and you could dance and have fun and not ever feel like you were an outcast or an outsider at those events because everyone was, the same in that sense. How many of you guys are everyone here LDS? Anyone non-LDS? Okay. So and then on top of that, I mean, yeah, there just was a ton of activities. I mean, every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night, there was something to do. I mean, even if you wanted to go do something on Sunday, they had a ton of activities on Sundays that were spiritually, usually spiritually in nature, or at least they thought they were. But there was always things to do on campus, and I just felt like it was just great. I mean, we were up, all the time playing and having fun. The fourth thing is missionary prep. This, to me, is a big one. I felt like BYU prepared me better for my mission than probably anything else I did. And the reason is I went away to school. And that, to me, is a key factor. And here's why. So when I went away to BYU, by about October, I started to get that itch of homesickness, missing family, missing friends. And I was able to drive home, go home, stay for a couple days, realize that home is great, but it's actually not that great, and it's actually pretty fun to be at BYU, and then go back. And then around Thanksgiving time, that homesickness set in again. Came home, this time for 4 days, and after that, like the third day was really like, I can't wait to get back to school. And then by Christmas, it was done. I didn't really care to go home, but I went home anyway, and I loved it. And I think for missionaries, that is critical because once you get on the mission, you don't have that chance to go home and realize that home isn't as, it's still wonderful, but you're okay without it, basically. So for me, as a missionary prep, if anything else, it helped me kind of overcome that homesickness that you may feel if you stay local to college. And that's why I think I'm a big advocate of going away, because I saw that experience for myself of just breaking away a little bit and realizing that it's okay to not be at home all the time. So that was another thing. The final thing, obviously, is, academics. Again, you can't understate the academics at BYU. I think, again, I work in my company. We've got a good diversity. We have about 5 or 6 BYU grads. And I would put BYU grads up against any other institution in the country, including Stanford, Berkeley, and others, in terms of their work ethic, their knowledge, how successful they are. So, anyway, great academics. So those are some of my pros. Let me give you some cons so I can be objective as to maybe some of the things that people might perceive that's not great about BYU, or maybe where there's some weaknesses. The first thing I would have to say is diversity. Okay? Everyone is the same. Everyone's Mormon, and everyone believes the same thing, and for the most part, everyone looks the same, and they dress the same, and their haircut's the same, and there is that kind of component to it. So if you're looking for a super diverse company in terms of different beliefs, religions, and everything, BYU not going to probably have that. Now, the interesting thing is BYU is diverse in its own way, in the sense that it has 120 countries represented in all 50 states. And in fact, BYU Hawaii is rated the #1 most diverse campus in the country. And it's because of all of the different nations that are represented at BYU Hawaii. So, and then you also have the return missionary component, which is all these missionaries that go away and come back and have experienced cool things all over the world. And so it's diverse in its own way, but from just, if you looked at it, if you stood there and looked at the BYU campus and didn't talk to anybody, you'd be like, wow, these are just a bunch of clones, basically, little, Mormon clones walking around, okay? So that might be something to think about. And again, I'm giving you what I feel is the pros and the cons. I don't agree with all these cons, but I want to mention them. Okay, there's the Zuby factor. Who has heard this term before? Anyone ever heard of a Zuby before?
Yep.
Okay, a Zuby is a term they call BYU students that are basically kind of overzealous about their religion and in some ways maybe can be in your face about it. And there is that component of BYU, okay? There is some folks that haven't maybe, I don't know, that are just really zealous about being LDS and will tell you if they think that, you're not as LDS as they are, I know that sounds terrible, but, there's always a debate. Do you watch TV on Sunday? The Super Bowl's on. Should you, shouldn't you? And there will be people that will feel the need to tell you whether you should or shouldn't. And when you get placed in rooms with roommates, it can be a factor. So just know that there is sort of this component of a little bit of
self-righteousness.
Self-righteousness, great term. Okay? So the third thing my wife said I had to mention was the meat market. Okay? Which is, a lot of people go there because you can find people to date. And a lot of people have found their spouses at BYU. I dated my spouse at BYU, although we grew up went to the same high school. But we didn't start actually dating until we went to BYU, so it worked out well. But it was in a BYU apartment where we found true love. So anyway, it is a little bit of a meat market. My wife always complained that when you go to church, it felt like, everyone put on not their Sunday best, but their Friday night best, to look good for the guys or the girls, okay? And then my worst thing is the snow. This is BYU Provo, obviously. I hate the snow. I just thought that was terrible. And in fact, the first day I didn't have very good snow gear, and I'm walking to campus and it's snowing, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is the worst ever. So, this is probably my only personal con, but I think these things do exist, and there's something to think about. So really quickly, those are my pros and my cons. Again, I absolutely loved my BYU experience. I thought it was fantastic. I credit it for a lot of great experiences that it gave me that have helped me, later in life. So anyway, let me talk